Hey, good evening, and welcome to tonight's training. We are going to be talking about mindset mastery and the type of mindset that you need to succeed in business. So, I should introduce myself. For those of you that don't know, my name is Phil Balliot, and I run the Guided Growth Syndicate, and I also work in the Atlas Agency Launch Lab. So, I am here to share this information with you this evening, and without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to share my screen here and find the one we want here. So, no regrets. There's a movie, I think it's called We're the Millers, and there's a stoner kid that has this tattooed across his chest, and obviously regrets is spelled wrong. And that's just something my wife and I always say to each other because it just struck us really funny. So anytime that we're making a decision to do something that could be considered maybe bold or maybe even counterintuitive or whatever, we say no regrets. And it's just sort of a little inside joke that we have. But in the movie, this kid walks around with this tattoo, and as you can see, he's like showing it off. He's super proud of it, despite the fact that it's spelled wrong. And that's kind of the type of energy that you have to have if you're going to be doing something like this on your own. So, one of the other things I want to talk about here is making sure that we don't always choose safety. And in February of 1519, Hernando Cortez landed in what is now Mexico. And the first thing he did when he landed, he had his troops burn their boats. And the reason for that is because if the boats were there, the minute things got difficult, they would want to go back to the ships. They possibly would have even killed him to go back to the ships and then head back to Spain. So by burning the ships, he made sure that the only route available was forward. It became the safest option because you can't swim the Atlantic Ocean. So you have to stay on that dry land. So he burned the ships. And that's really what I want to drive home here is that sometimes in order to achieve your dreams, you have to leave the safe option behind. And in my case, I worked a 9-to-5 in the medical field. I worked on medical equipment for 16 years. And that was a safe choice. It was a steady job. I brought in a paycheck every 2 weeks. It was predictable. And when I went out to do stuff on my own, every time things got hard, I thought about going back to the hospital. It didn't matter that I didn't like it. It didn't matter that it took up 40 hours of my week. It didn't matter that we'd have to pay for childcare. None of that mattered. What mattered is that it was safe. So my end run around that was to make sure that I burned my ship, so to speak. There is no way that they would hire me back in biomed. Not so much because I didn't do my job, but I let them all know that I really didn't want to be there. And it was nothing personal, but this was just not for me. So I burned my ships to make sure that my only path was forward. And it's very important because success then becomes your safest option. There is no way back. And the odds will be in your favor because it's the only option. So if it's the only option you have, it's like if you were flipping a coin, right? It can land on heads or tails. But if the only option you have is heads, then it's going to land on heads every time. So my only option was to move forward. And the other thing that you have to keep in mind is who cares about you more than you? Nobody. Nobody cares about you more than, not even your mom cares more about you than you do. So it's just like with airplanes, when they're going down, you have to put your oxygen mask on first before you can help those around you. So in my case, I had a family to take care of. I had to put my oxygen mask on first to make sure that I could breathe so that I could take care of my kids and my wife. And that's what you need to do as well. You know, I want you to understand that what you're trying to do in the online digital marketing world, only about 10% of people, less than 10% actually, are successful doing this. So when you talk to people like me and Sheena, we are in the top 10% in our field. And I think you are too. And that's why you're here. That's why you're in the Atlas Growth Navigator, because you're one of those people who's going to succeed. And we're going to help you get there. But we wouldn't have been able to help you get there if we weren't successful first. So we had to put our oxygen masks on first. And do not conflate self-confidence for pride. They're two very different things. So pride is haughty, pride is arrogance, and quite frankly, pride is stupid. So if I was having a bunch of slow months and I wasn't making any money and I had to take care of my kids, I mean, I would, I don't know, 10 bar, drive for Uber, even get a job at Publix or something. Like, that doesn't mean that I'm doing anything wrong. You got to do what you got to do at times to take care of yourself, and of your family. The self-confidence comes in with the belief that you can and will be successful. So you can believe that you're going to be successful and still take a step back if you have to. That is self-confidence. Pride is saying, no, I won't do that. I'm too good for that. That is beneath me. And that is the difference between self-confidence and pride. And the biggest thing that you need to remember out of this is, it's something that we talk about with clients all the time, right? We talk about the hero's journey, and the client is always the hero of the story. Well, in this case, you are the hero of your own story. So make sure that it's a compelling narrative that you craft, right? So you want it to be something that you want to be a part of. Like, why would you be the main character in a story that you don't want to be part of? So whatever you're doing, make sure that you're the hero of this. And you have to have this self-confidence in what you're doing in order to have that main character energy, right? Because if you're not the main character in your own story, you're just there. And that's not living. That's not what life is supposed to be about. And Dr. Horton says, preach. So thank you. I appreciate that. But yeah, so make sure that you are the hero of your own story. And then I have a question here. It's, what if I can't? Well, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And think about that for a moment. No matter which direction you go, you're correct. So if I would have come from the medical field like I was in, and I thought there's no way in hell I could do digital marketing, I wouldn't do digital marketing. Like, I would fail, and I would be correct. I chose different. I thought, hey, I can do this. And sure enough, here I am a couple years later. I have a thriving business and I'm doing digital marketing. So a lot of it comes down to, how difficult do you want your life to be? And there is abundance and there's lack. And depending on your approach, that's what you're going to see. So, whether you think you can succeed or you think you can't succeed, that is what's going to happen. Either way, you're going to take part in a self-fulfilling prophecy, because you are the author of your own narrative. And it can be inspiring or it can be tragic. It's really up to you. And you have way more freedom than you think. The majority of us, we have decades of poor programming. And I chose the word poor for a reason, because we are often convinced that we have to be broke, that I'm incapable of saving money. I'm incapable of making money. I'm incapable of thinking outside of the box. This is all programming. throughout school, you're often taught what to think, not how to think. And that's a big problem. And it takes a lot of time to get over that, to change that line of thinking. So you have to get past those decades of poor programming. And the closest people to you often bet against you. And it's not that they hate you or that they don't like you. And often it's the opposite. Often they love you and they want to see you be happy, of course, but more than happy, they want to see you safe. So they think the safest thing for you to do is to go to college and get a job. And even if you hate it, so be it. Like, you still have income coming in, you still have a roof over your head. You know, in their mind, that is the important thing. People often pursue safety over freedom. And that is the difference with people like you and me. We're going after the freedom. The safety is secondary, because we understand, if you really stop and think about it, safety is an illusion. That nice safe job with that biweekly paycheck, that can go away in a heartbeat. You can be outsourced, downsized, anything can happen, you know. So the idea that, you know, oh, I have a job, like I can forecast my income for the next 6 months. Well, I mean, maybe. I hope so. Your identity might be wrapped up in struggle. There's so many people who claim that they hate drama, but they go from one dramatic experience to the next. Their life is this like never-ending soap opera. And it's because they don't know another way to live. It's where they're comfortable. And people will go to where they're comfortable, even if it's uncomfortable. It's kind of a weird paradox. But you don't have to do any of that. You might think that you face special challenges unique to yourself that prevent you from winning. And that is true. Every single one of us face unique challenges that only we experience, right? Like, you know, some people have medical issues. Other people have a poor financial start. Other people might have kids early in life, or they might have kids later in life. There's all kinds of reasons why the set of circumstances you face are unique. That's not the important part. The important part is that you just recognize that you're going to overcome them. And just because somebody has it easier from the outside does not mean that they have some kind of special privilege. They still had to work, maybe not as hard as you, but so be it. Like, that's just the way life is. And you can be busy counting other people's blessings, or you can count your own. And the only way to do that is to worry about yourself. So don't worry about moving on with what I have here. Other people succeed, not you. That is not true. You know people who may have won the lottery. You know people who do quite well in business, and you're still struggling to get yours off the ground. That doesn't mean that you are inherently blocked from succeeding. You're just comparing your first chapter to somebody else's 20th chapter. And that's no good for anybody. So you need to just focus on you and where you're going, and let the rest take care of itself. And finally, you might think hedging your bets is the smart thing to do. In reality, that's the worst thing you can do, because now you're not getting anywhere, right? So if I wanted to make progress, if success was to my right, I guess because of the way I'm facing the camera, that would, yeah. So if success was to my right, like, I need to go full force in that direction. But if I'm worried and I'm like, man, I don't know, like, because like right now I have my job and my health insurance and all that, you know, so I'm going to go over here, but I'm going to keep one foot over here. And then before you know it, you're stretched super thin, and you're always going to snap back to that comfort zone. So you're not going to make any progress. So hedging your bets is basically ensuring failure. You need to go full steam ahead with whatever you do. And I'm going to tell you my story now for a minute or two. A lot of people have heard me talk about this topic in one form or another. And some people might get the impression that I look down on or I dislike people who work 9 to 5 for a living. And that's not entirely true. In a lot of ways, it's like people, it's like if you're a smoker and then you quit smoking, like ex-smokers are the worst when it comes to being around cigarettes and cigars and stuff like that. Like they just hate it. And that's sort of how I am with 9 to 5 jobs. Um, the idea that somebody else is going to tell me what to do for 40 hours a week, and I'm going to have to put up with all of the office politics and whatnot, it annoys me. I don't like being around it. And I don't like people, hearing people complain about their jobs and stuff like that. I want no part of it. I got out of that and I escaped from that. And, I just don't see the reason, to revisit that. And I'm almost evangelical in my desire to help other people escape that, because it meant so much to me to be where I am now. I don't take any of it for granted. So, to give you kind of an idea where I was, this is where I started. I worked roughly from 6 a.m. to 2:30 ish in the afternoon, not including commute time. There for a while, I was driving to Atlanta once a week from my house in Pensacola. Um, it was about a 5-hour trip one way, and I would get out of the surgeries Wednesday evening just in time for rush hour in Atlanta. So it would take me about 6 hours to get home. And I hated weekdays and I hated Sunday nights because it would lead up to the weekdays. So remember, you only get 7 days in a week, right? 7 days. And I hated 5 of them, 5.5 really, because of the Sunday evenings. So what kind of a way is that to live? And it really wasn't. That was not living, that was existing. And in my mind, though, there wasn't anything I can do about it. I needed to have a job. And in those jobs, if you were lucky, you got a 3% raise. Most of the time, it was a 2% raise because that's just what they were offering at the time. So you go and you do all of this extra work. You impress the bosses and all that, and you get your little 2.5, 3% raise. But we all know inflation's like 6. So really, you're not getting ahead. You're just falling further and further behind. It was very disheartening, I guess you could say. And because of that, in the narrative that was my life, I saw myself as the victim. And the big problem with that is when you're a victim, you have no power. As the victim, everything happened to me. And you don't get a say in what that is when you're a victim. So until I was able to flip that narrative, I had no control over anything. And if you don't have control over something, you can't change something. So I was miserable and I couldn't change that. I just stayed miserable and got more and more miserable. And I saw abundance as a myth. I lived this middle class lifestyle, but it was always scraping by, it was never comfortable. It didn't feel like it was possible to ever be comfortable, you know, um, just because, by the time you get that 3% raise, you need a new iPhone, you need a new computer, you need something, you want to take a trip somewhere, um, so that's gone. And you just can't seem to climb out of that. It was just very gray. And, I had a lot of mindset work to do when I left working for the hospital and decided to go out on my own. And I spent somewhere upwards of $30,000 just working on my mindset. Because if I didn't change my mindset, all of these problems that you see here, that's what I would have brought into business. And instead of where I am now, I would have just been another victim, except I would have been a self-employed victim. So what I did was I burned my ships. Like I said, there's no way that they would take me back in biomed. Um, at the local hospital here, I could, if we moved, I could probably get a job, but I'm not worried about that. And I built my narrative, and instead of being the victim in my story, I am the hero. And I made sure that everybody who bet against me had to admit they were wrong. And it's not like I went around to each one of them and made them tell me they were wrong. I don't mean that. I just meant that I understand and know that I'm successful and I'm happy with that. I found internal validation. Knowing that everybody else is silently admitting that they were wrong about me, that's icing on the cake, but that doesn't matter. It's really what, from inside here, right? That internal validation. That is the most important factor. If you don't have that, if you're relying on external validation for anything, by the way, you're set up for failure, because you need to be the main character in your own story. So if you need that external validation, you don't have that main character energy, and you're a side character in your own story. And side characters, well, like, they get killed off and maimed and stuff. It's not good. So I am living my best life right now. I'm not exactly where I want to be yet, but I don't have dreams anymore. I have goals, and I'm going to accomplish them. So I'm very happy because I know that I can do what I'm setting out to do. And like that in and of itself, when you consider, like I told you before at the beginning of this, Sheena and I are in the top 10% in this industry because we have successful businesses. And knowing that, like, that's really important. And I can live my best life knowing that I'm making progress towards reaching all of my goals. I'm allowed to be happy with the progress that I've made. I don't, you can embrace where you are, but not accept it. The quote Nick Sirianni. And that's kind of what I'm talking about here. I'm very happy with where I am, but I don't accept it yet because I still have other, more things I want to accomplish. And nothing is standing in my way of doing that. And that's a very freeing thought. So finally, some action steps that you can take right now to help you develop a mindset that can help you overall with your business. One, craft your origin story. Use that to think about where you started, where you want to go, and how you got your superpower, how you became a thought leader, or whatever it is that you do and that you do well. Okay. And embellish it. Like, this is for you. No, you're not sharing this with anybody, right? This is just for you. So embellish that, right? Make it like the coolest origin story in the world. And remember that you're in a unique place with unique opportunities. So don't discount them. Think about, like, it's never been easier to make money online than it is right now. It's never been easier in all of human history to make money than it is right now. So you have an opportunity. You just need to seize it. And what you might be looking at as obstacles, I want you to remember that they could be opportunities. Because if you really stop and think about it, people pay you to solve problems. And obstacles are just another word for problems. So if there are obstacles around you and you can solve them, they become opportunities. So they're just, opportunities are really just problems with good press. And use main character energy in how you live your life. Because in your life, you are the main character. And, think of it like you have plot armor. Plot armor is a term that's used for main characters in TV shows. Like the bullets always miss them. They just escape in the nick of time. Like the explosion happens behind them as they're walking away and they look super cool. That's you. Like, shit doesn't bother you because it can't affect you. You're the main character. And if you have that belief about yourself, a lot of times it will manifest. So give yourself permission to succeed. That's another thing that's really important. And it sounds kind of like, the first time I heard that, I thought that was stupid. Like, of course I want to succeed, but actually give yourself permission to do it. It really does change something, because you have this programming that says, no, you need to go get a job, and other people do this. Well, let me tell you something. You are other people. That's why you're doing this. Okay? You're wired a little differently. That's why you're an entrepreneur. So give yourself permission to succeed. And remember that no matter what, you're going to be right. So you may as well be happy in winning. So, like, if you're going to think, well, I can do this or I can't do this, no matter what, you're going to be right. So you might as well think that you can do this and move forward. And then finally, burn your ships, because then success becomes your safest option. And if it's your safest option, that is the one that you will gravitate to, and that is the one that you will do. So you can stack the deck in your favor by doing stuff like this. And there's no reason that you can't have exactly the life that you want, other than you're not really trying to go for it. And that is the problem that most people face. Most people will never do this. Most people will make an excuse. Oh, I can't, I can't do this because I don't know. There's all kinds of reasons. I can't leave my job because my kids are relying on me. I can't, I can't do this because, I don't have enough time in the day. None of that's true. There are people that have been in way worse situations than you, and they've been far more successful. There are people that have been in way worse situations than me and have been far more successful. It's just a matter of getting to a point where, you're ready to do what it takes. And I think it's a line from MASH. A hero is not somebody that's braver than anybody else. A hero is just tired enough, cold enough, and hungry enough not to give a damn. So that's what you need to be: tired enough, hungry enough, and cold enough to not give a damn, and move forward and claim that crown, and be that main character that you're supposed to be. And I hope this was helpful. I hope this was enjoyable, and I look forward to talking with you all soon. Thank you.